Hello, and welcome to Embracing Diabetes, a podcast that explores the many ways people are thriving with diabetes in the world. Today, Amy and I had a chance to talk with Carol Atkinson, the director at Insulin for Life. Insulin for Life USA is an organization that provides insulin and diabetes management supplies free of charge to those with diabetes who otherwise would go without. They collect in-date, unopened supplies from individuals or organizations and, following careful inspection, deliver them to disadvantaged regions to be utilized by those in need. Insulin for Life USA is fully licensed by the state of Florida to receive and distribute medications. All donations to the organization are tax deductible. Their work does so much good in the world, and we wanted to share more. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Carol, thank you so much for making time to talk with us on Embracing Diabetes. I've really been looking forward to our conversation. Your organization is one that's been a part of my clinical experience for a long time. Insulin for Life, I see most of my patients that I see have type 1 and type 2 diabetes, often use insulin, and they often are looking for ways to donate or give back if they have extras or if they're, whatever. There's lots of reasons. But yeah, so thank you for making time to talk with us.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for the invitation. And it's always good to raise awareness and share the word and let people know who we are and what we do. So thanks for the opportunity.
You bet. You bet. That's kind of a nice segue into, tell us a little bit about your organization. How long has it been around? What did it come out of? How did you get connected? Just some background.
Perfect. So Insulin for Life USA has been in Florida since 2012. There was a little startup located elsewhere for a little while before we got on the ground, but for all intents and purposes, we've been operating out of Gainesville, Florida since 2012. But the whole premise started, interestingly enough, in Australia. There is an Insulin for Life Global. So there are multiple chapters in many other countries. And it really started by a person with insulin-dependent diabetes traveling in an under-resourced area. And just the grim reality hit them of, had I been unfortunate enough to be located somewhere where I didn't have access to insulin and therapy supplies, I probably still wouldn't be here. He was a mature gentleman at the time and had lived a long time with diabetes and managing his diabetes. So that kind of started a thought of, could we capture supplies that are certainly still useful? And I think that's one of the misnomers I'd love to kind of unpack as a follow-up, but take supplies that are still viable and share them with others. Why couldn't we do that? So that's really how it got started. And it's a unbelievably simple idea and format that's incredibly powerful and has saved many, many lives.
Wow. So maybe if you want to, since you were sort of suggesting the unpacking part, maybe let's just jump into that one so we don't have to come back to it, because that sounds like it's pretty important, the simplicity. Yeah.
It is important. So we really operate on the premise that please don't donate something that you wouldn't be really happy to receive yourself or to give your loved ones. So, often we'll hear, well, if someone has nothing, this is better than nothing. Not the case. And secondly, we do have a drug license, and we operate under those restrictions to protect ourselves, our donors, and our recipients. So we very carefully control nothing out of date, nothing expired, nothing partially used, all stuff that, is perfectly usable, but the person who has them in their possession at the moment can't use them themselves. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind. If something is expired or partially used, unfortunately, we can't help with that.
How about if something if a bottle, I'm just thinking of what's in my refrigerator at home, a bottle of insulin that's out of the box, but still has the safety seal on the top.
And that works.
Okay, good.
Can be unboxed as long as obviously it's carefully sent in. As soon as that safety seal is broken, even if you say, well, we didn't really use it, we just took the cap off, just for what's probably obvious reasons, we cannot use that. And it's important that it's properly stored. If it's not been in refrigeration, please don't donate it to us. And we do have on our website all of the packing tips about how to safely send insulin. For those in the local Gainesville, Florida area, they, of course, can make an appointment and come in and drop off their supplies. But, we receive supplies from all across the United States, and we have very detailed packing and shipping instructions on our website because we want it to be safe and well maintained and not maybe you ship it inappropriately and we have to dispose of it because we can't, just can't do that.
That all seems very reasonable.
And like boxes of syringes, and say I have a G6 sensor and now I'm using the G7, but I don't have what's the tool, Liz?
Transmitter.
I don't have the transmitter, but I have the sensor, which is still valuable, right?
Right. That's the fun part. We get boxes every day, lots of boxes every day. And people used to be tripped up on that. You need 4 pieces to make this work, whatever the case, the pump, blah, blah, blah. I don't have all 4 pieces, but I do have one lone transmitter, one lone sensor or whatever. Is it really worth it? Does it make a difference? And the answer is absolutely. I wish I could take you through our office and say, all of these things would have been in the landfill, would have been thrown away. We're just the fortunate ones who get to put all the things together. And it's amazing, everything comes in and everyone has a little piece of that puzzle and we put all of those pieces together. So absolutely, if you've got a portion of something that can be used, the chances are very, very good that somebody else had the other part and has sent it in and we will combine them.
Awesome.
That's so great. Right. Because otherwise it's like sitting in my closet, not doing, going to complete waste. And it's an expensive piece of equipment.
Right. Right. That's the beauty of it. I think when I first came, I was focusing on the end recipient and how good it would feel to help. So that's another thing to throw in here. We work with the healthcare teams. We don't send supplies to individuals. Our premise is to really secure that health patient, doctor, healthcare team cohesion. And if you get, free supplies somewhere, then if you're under-resourced, you're probably not going to go and get your checkups as often, communicate with your healthcare team, which is not where we want people to be. So by us providing supplies to healthcare teams who want to be in partnership, we're almost encouraging those people with diabetes to really stay in good communication with your healthcare team, get good education, good mentoring, good control. So anyway, that's the key to it. But, I didn't necessarily remember how important it would be to those donors. You just hit the nail on the head. Anyone who has diabetes and uses these supplies realizes what a life-saving resource they have, and it makes them sick to be told, throw it away. If you can't use it, it's not legal for you to just give it to someone, throw it in the trash. And the relief that people experience when they realize, someone can use this, it's not illegal. We take it, it's all very legal the way we do it. We're taking away the risk of someone using something that's not exactly what they should have because they'll take whatever they can get. No, they're getting it from their healthcare team and they're getting what is best for them.
That's wonderful. When you say, Carol, healthcare teams, like I know I think I shipped some stuff to you years ago when one of the hurricanes came through Texas. And, there was just a lot of, communities that were really impacted by just not being able to access resources. Can you speak to any stories that might be inspiring where you were able to help people or communities with some of the diabetes?
Absolutely. You brought up Texas, and that's probably one of my inspiring stories, not the devastation, of course. We were all heartbroken, but Texas really helped us start a diabetes disaster response coalition called the DDRC, of which I'm a co-chair. Back when hurricanes were headed to Texas and we knew, oh no, this is going to be really bad. We just kind of built the plane as we were flying it. A bunch of organizations got together and worked in several days a week, maybe even into the disaster. It was Labor Day weekend. I can still remember going in that Saturday morning. I got a desperate call from healthcare nurses and physicians who were literally going in boats and going out to people finding their patients, finding the people that they had worked with and making sure they had supplies, but they didn't have any supplies to give. They were in a very kind of isolated, remote area, and all the big people hadn't gotten there yet. It takes sometimes time. And we all know people with insulin dependent diabetes don't have time. So they called me, and none of the major shipping people were shipping. So I said, I don't know how I'm going to get this stuff to you. And lo and behold, a small private pilot reached out to me and said, if you have stuff, we'll make this happen. So I ran into my office, and, office was closed. Everyone was gone, and just created a box of supplies and drove to the airfield, got it to a private pilot, flew it in, and met these healthcare teams as close as they could and they got it in their boats and went on their way. And, the number of people, it ended up, the storm had come in just when people were expecting their mail order supplies. We don't often think of that. They come at the same time of a month, and heaven forbid a disaster hit at that time. They were low and out of supplies, and shipping had stopped. So I often look back on that. It was 12 hours from when I got the call to when those supplies were in the hands of the healthcare teams on a holiday.
That is an unbelievable story.
Yeah.
I feel like that should be on TV or something. Like that's. I hope you guys have that on your website somewhere, because
we don't actually, but it's one of my favorites. I remember going from feeling totally helpless.
Right.
I have to do something. What am I to do?
Yeah.
And
12 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the diabetes community, someone knew a pilot who knew, and it's just, I think that's the other side. The diabetes community is unique, at least from my vantage point, to really being caring about one another, really embracing rising up and doing what shouldn't be possible. It's an amazing community to be honored to work with.
That said, I just want to interrupt for a second, because we haven't talked about that yet. But what is your connection, Carol, other than just having a huge, generous heart? Do you have any personal experience or family members with type 1?
So no family
or type 2.
Yep. No family members with type 1. However, my husband is Mark Atkinson with the University of Florida. So yeah, I was going to say it sounds so egotistical, but I figured that the name may ring a bell. So Mark and I, for years, led short-term mission teams. Healthcare providers went to Haiti a lot, went to the Philippines, went to Nigeria. This is what we did, and did it for years. But with Mark's experience with diabetes, we kept saying, what can we do that's more sustainable? And I'm not downplaying what we did all of those years. We touched a lot of lives and are grateful to have been in that. We were approached, or specifically I was approached because I'm a logistics kind of person, and said, Insulin for Life is perfect for you. You need to pick it up. You already are so familiar with the diabetes community, And I said, no, I can't do both. And I really kind of enjoy these short-term teams. Anyway, got convinced and said, okay, I'll get it started and then hand it off to someone and get back to my business. I'm in my 12th year and somehow have not learned to hand it off. And we've just grown exponentially, and there's no reason for it except we're in the right place at the right time. And it's an amazing story of which we're just one player.
Is your husband an endocrinologist?
So he is a diabetes researcher, but has spent his entire career in diabetes and has made a bit of a name for himself.
That Liz knows. Yeah. Liz, you're muted.
Yeah.
Yes, he's a huge, big name in the type 1 diabetes community.
Yeah.
So, wow, that's quite a connection. So that explains the Florida thing.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do agree about the community, though. Like, I know you agree too, Liz. We've talked about this before, which is just so reassuring, that it really is a powerful community. And Liz and I have talked about this before too, about just social media and being online and how a lot of times those experiences can be negative for people. But that I really think that the diabetes online community is an exception. And I'm sure there are examples of negative stuff out there. But in my experience and the stories that we hear, just echo what you're saying, Carol, that it's just this amazing supportive community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, with climate change and all of these events kind of happening around the world, like, have you found that there's been an uptick in demands for your services? Or, 'cause I think I didn't realize you had this international connection. I saw that on your website, but I kind of thought of you as more of a North America kind of place. But how has that affected just with all these disasters happening?
Absolutely. So we started initially as 100% internationally focused. And to touch on that for a moment, we're in 23 countries. We have 26 international partners, and to hear stories from healthcare providers who, the relief, imagine, having people with diabetes that you can't get supplies for is just heartbreaking. So as we worked in that, though, we realized there were some supplies that we had that weren't appropriate for our international partners, meaning pump supplies, things that shorter date products that we couldn't get into customs and just weren't workable. So we kind of dipped our toe in the water and started with some domestic outreach, especially disaster response. And then, like I said, we started this coalition, which bloomed into a huge thing overnight. And then COVID really took us to a new high. We partnered, actually, our first response to COVID was, if you remember, the very, very early days when protective measures weren't in place and, it was just very difficult. And we found that people with diabetes were avoiding going to the hospital and things were getting really bad, really, really bad. And loved ones couldn't come and help them with testing and things were going bad quickly. So one of our organizations we work closely with in the coalition is the American Diabetes Association. And we got together and kind of pulled some strings and got some funding, and a company reached out and said, we'll work with it. The FDA did a special allowance for CGM in hospitals so that they could reduce patient healthcare provider interaction and keep everybody safe. So we partnered and sent actually some CGM materials to 130 hospitals. Again, the idea came and we responded, built the project as we were sending out. And then that followed up with clinics and people who had enormous numbers of people with diabetes who were losing jobs, losing benefits, not able to get out. And then we developed that plan and worked with about 50 to 75 healthcare facilities around the United States. Most of them I actually still work with, providing pump supply resources, again, to keep people in the therapy that they're accustomed to when they're had a life change, usually a temporary life change, and they just need that little bit to get them to the other side. So we still have that project going on, and program maybe is a better word. And so have quite an extensive reach domestically as well as internationally. And we've learned that it's a great fit. You can do both and do both well.
So I know one of the follow-up questions that I have, and I know it's on our list also, but how do people, obviously they can go to the website, but how do people contribute to Insulin for Life? What kind of supplies are you specifically looking for? I didn't think you guys took pump supplies because I've got another organization that I often direct people to. Insulin Pumpers, I think, is the one. And if I have patients or people who are, in a specific situation and need some support, how do they? Is it me that has to reach out to you guys, or how does that whole thing work?
It is. So that's a great question. So we do accept pump supplies. We didn't for a while, but saw there's a huge need for those. We don't take the pumps themselves, but the supplies. So again, the goal is to keep people in the therapy that they're already accustomed to. In a life transition, changing your whole diabetes management system is not exactly, ideal. So when we can come in and do that, again, we always work with the healthcare team. So individuals cannot reach out for supplies. These are prescription items. We are not pharmacists. We are not healthcare providers, nor do we want to be. We really want people to continue to go to their healthcare team and be honest and open and have these important conversations about where they are and what they need. And we don't want to interject ourselves into that. But on our website, it does list very specifically what we can take and the criteria that it needs to make. Insulin, we already talked about, needs to be refrigerated and have at least 90 days before it will expire. Pump supplies need 6 months before they expire. Again, the burden of healthcare providers trying to flip things very quickly is unreasonable. So that's all really well outlined. We think well outlined on our website. We, of course, have a telephone line that people can call and ask additional questions if something's not incredibly clear. We have packing tips, how to pack it, where to send it, a shipping form. For those who it helps, it is a tax deductible gift because we are a 501c3 organization. Some people that's not important and others it is. And if it is, great, we provide the receipt. And if you don't want it, that's fine also. We have some folks who want to give anonymously. That's great. So we're really flexible and try and work very hard with our donors, but that is all on our website. We love it when healthcare providers refer people to us. That's a big help. We do have a social media presence, where word of mouth, trying to share again in the diabetes community. Often on those threads, questions do arise. What do I do with my extra supplies? And we hope that goes out there.
How big of a space? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, how many people do you have on your team? I picture like you
I know,
like back there with a big closet.
Yeah, I'm like curious, like how big is your warehouse? I imagine you have a lot of stuff.
Our house is very organized and we keep things rotating as quickly as we can. Our team is incredibly small. Thankfully, we do get volunteers. Being in a college town, the pharmacy school sends volunteers over to help us.
Oh, good.
We try to be as lean as we can possibly be. That's important, and not-for-profits have been hit very hard. And, donor burnout is a real thing. And so you just have to be as lean as you can be and make as much difference as you can. So we have an amazingly small team. Even I sometimes at the end of the month when I'm doing reports think, how do we get this done?
I know. Yeah.
Wow. Gosh, it's inspiring me.
Me too.
I'm doing some winter cleaning, and like I've got drawers full of I was opened one today and I was like, oh gosh, close the drawer. It's so full of stuff, but I'm going to go through it and see what I got in there.
And
I might be able to send your way. My goodness. Yeah.
The difficult thing is when people hang on to things so long, fired and say, the question we get all the time, how does a syringe and a pen needle expire? I'm like, right. I didn't make them, but if there's an expiration date.
Really? On syringes? Those?
Yep, there is. It's so crazy. Yeah.
I think that's just bullshit, though, that's the drug companies trying to make money. I mean, I'm like, is the insulin really expire? I don't believe that.
So I always tell people, I can't opine on that. I just have to obey the rules.
Right. I think everything that's distributed has to have an expiration date on it. So there's probably some rationale that way, but I totally agree. Like plastic stuff, really? Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hold on. One more question before I forget. Carol, do you hear the individual stories like that, the heartwarming stories that want to make you keep going because you're dealing with doctors and endocrinologists, healthcare providers, but do you hear the stories of the individual people?
We do. We absolutely do through our healthcare teams who, kindly want to keep us encouraged because they hear the stories.
Right.
And they know the lives, but they feed those back to us. I'm sure there are lots of things we don't hear. And thankfully, we've developed a little bit of a thick skin and realize even if you never hear it, you do know it's happening.
Right.
So we love to hear stories. We love to get pictures, and we've certainly gotten more than our share of heartwarming stories. But just the sheer nature of what we're doing, we know we're saving lives. And
Yeah.
we don't hear about it. That has to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I want you to
wonderful.
hear these stories because
Yeah.
it's such amazing work. Yeah.
Anything coming up for you guys, just as we're getting close to time, that's coming up for the next year that you're particularly excited about, or changes that are, I mean, it's just probably an ongoing thing, but anything you want to make sure we talk about?
No, it is an ongoing thing. And, we've been for a long time, as CGM becomes popular, test strips are much less frequently used here in the US, but our international partners, their need for them, I used to dream. My dream, everyone would say, what's your dream? What's your goal? And I would say that, in America, it's hard to comprehend, but in our countries, many people only get their blood tested when they come for a checkup. There's no at-home testing, no meters, no anything. So I said, the worst kept secret is I want every partner, every person they serve to have an at-home meter and test once a day. And then once that's achieved, twice a day. And once that's achieved, 3 times a day. It's you give a mouse a cookie. If you give Carol a test strip, she's going to want 1,000 other things. So, for years, I've been really troubled with the decline in the donation of test strips. And this year, I'm happy to say it's been a really good year. We got some corporate donors who made a big difference for us. So as World Diabetes Day is coming and November is coming and all of the activities, for the first time ever, we've been reaching out to every one of our international partners and saying, what are you doing for diabetes awareness? We want to send you additional screening tools. We want this to be possible for you. So we are very excited. Things are going out very quickly so they can arrive in place in all of these activities. So that was a real victory for us this year. So we're still riding pretty high on that and really hoping that those donations continue. Every year we grow. Every year we serve more people and receive more resources, and just could not be more happy.
Wow. This is such a great story. I'm so glad that we'll have a chance to share this with our listeners. And I'm so glad, Carol, that you're doing this work. It's so important for people who, if they don't have their supplies, often things don't go very well. So I'm so, so glad that you guys are around. Thank you.
Thank you for doing your part in helping us raise awareness and the invitation to come and share with you and your listeners. We're just honored to be here and are so grateful for the opportunity.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And we will let you know when this is posted, and take care.
Thank you. Thank you both very, very much.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you for listening to this episode of Embracing Diabetes with your podcast hosts, Dr. Liz Stevens and myself, Amy Stockwell, and music by Noah Mortola. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and maybe felt inspired or informed or less alone or all of the above. Please follow Embracing Diabetes on all major podcast platforms and leave a comment, question, or review. Thanks again. We hope you'll come back for more.